Yeah, we're gonna attend Miriam Namazi's
Oh, good.
At 12:30 when she has a keynote speech.
Right, 12:30.
Why don't you speak to me though?
What do you have to say?
Why do you hate Muslims so much, man?
I don't hate Muslims. I hate Islam
Why do you hate Islam?
because it's stupid.
Why is it stupid? Is it stupid?
It's really stupid.
I think we have a lot of good reasons to believe the intellectual foundation of Islam is very, very strong.
No, they're not.
Okay, why? Why are they not?
It relies on this prophet of yours.
Okay, what's wrong with our prophet?
How does he know?
How does he
Where's
know?
the evidence?
Okay,
And you know,
let me give you some evidence. Shall
I
give you
read
some
this
evidence?
book last night.
How do you find it?
Terrible.
Okay.
This is disgraceful.
Give me some
You
contentions.
clearly have some money here because you can put out these nicely printed booklets. But this,
You have money, you have a very nice suit on.
well, yeah. So what I'm saying is
Sure.
you've got some money. You're investing money in this, and then you've got this crap. This is rehashed creationist nonsense. This is the same stuff we've been dealing with in the United States for the last 50 years.
Okay.
And there's absolutely nothing in here that's original.
Okay.
And all of it's been frequently refuted. So,
But what we've just made are statements and generalizations. You haven't given any substance here. What do you mean? I mean, do you disagree that, for example, when we talk
for
about...
instance, well, you make the first cause argument.
No, we don't actually. It's actually called the Kalam cosmological argument. It's a rehashed version. It's a modern version that has good premises and if you study logic.
There's no.
Okay,
come on, no.
okay. Let me give it to you in summary, right?
Okay, give me the summary.
There's two premises. Yeah, whatever begins to exist is a cause. The second premise is the universe began to exist. Okay, and we can substantiate that philosophically and using astrophysics. Then the conclusion, which makes it a sound and valid argument, is that then the universe has a cause. So if the universe began to exist, it has a cause. So let me just repeat that.
Okay.
One, whatever begins to exist is a
heard
cause.
you.
The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause.
Let me point
it
out-
doesn't mean it's God though.
I will point
But we
out-
use
right.
conceptual analysis.
That's what I will point out two things
Okay,
there.
good.
And one is that modern physics does not support your claims.
Okay.
That you can have spontaneous things just popping into existence. They do all the time.
Okay, can I address that?
And
Is that
well,
all right?
first, and let me make my other point,
Okay.
which is that, as you mentioned, pointing out that there was a cause does not imply a God.
I agree.
So why do we care?
You didn't let me finish.
Okay, now you're going to finish. Okay.
Okay, good. So the first thing, in terms of random quantum fluctuations and subatomic events that don't correspond to causality, well, that's a particular view amongst physicists, which is the indeterministic view. We don't have to hold that view. You know, the mathematics is there, but there could be different translations in the real world. So, for instance, you could take a deterministic view, which is the David Bowie interpretation, for instance, right? And there's other physicists who are taking that view. So you can't just say it's all of physics. And I think that's a bit of a scientific outdated cliche.
But then what you're doing is you're admitting that you're basically cherry picking the.
No, we're not, because.
Well, yes, you are. You just said that.
No. Let me tell you why. Because if you take a Kantian argument that causality is a priori, it's independent from experience. Because we only know that we could order our perceptions in the universe based upon the innate concept of causality. So to accept that there's no causality in the quantum fluctuations would be denying your own very perceptions in the first place. So we have good reasons to believe that there's causality here, and quantum fluctuations don't say much. The other point I'm trying to make is when we know there's a cause for the universe, which you're happily assuming that there may be a cause, the problem is that now when you use conceptual analysis, you come to some starting conclusions. For example, we would argue that Occam's razor must be uncaused. We would argue that therefore it must be eternal. We would argue that it's immaterial and transcendent because it creates the material world. So from these perspectives, it's in line with the monotheistic view of God. I don't see that as a problem.
I see that as a huge problem.
Why?
Because what you've got is an anthropomorphic patriarchal God.
No, we haven't
yes,
said
you
anything
do.
about
Oh,
anthropomorphism. Who
yes,
said
you
that?
have.
That's a Christian narrative.
This is the Islamic narrative too.
No, in the
You're all-
Quran it says
you're all
"Laysa
built-
kamithli shay," which means God is transcendent. There is nothing like unto Him. And when we say Him, is no gender.
So what?
But do you see how some of your outdated cliches you can't apply them to the
You've
Quran?
got a personal God who takes a personal interest in human beings.
Okay, what's wrong with that?
You have no evidence for this. The
We do.
universe.
Can I give you evidence for God having a will?
No,
Okay,
no,
an
no, no,
eternal
no.
being bringing to existence a finite effect must have chosen it to come to existence. Choice indicates a will, and a will indicates it can have a relationship with personal beings. Do you see?
Where's the evidence?
Yeah.
Conceptually, so conceptual.
Oh, conceptual.
Okay.
But do you see?
Okay,
but
you know why that's
I
not
think
funny?
everybody here can see what you're
Is
doing.
it doctor or professor?
Everybody here can see what
Professor
you're doing.
Myers, you know why that's funny? Because you're assuming that you must have an empirical paradigm to everything that you say, a verificationism. It's like logical positivism of the 1960s. It doesn't work anymore. I'll give you an example, because empiricism can't even prove logical truths like numbers. Numbers are conceptual. They're necessary truths.
Science is
so we
not
can't
about
laugh
proof.
that there's no physical evidence for numbers. Do you see the point? Do you understand the point here?
I wonder if I can get in a few words
Yeah, sure,
here.
go for it. Sorry.
We'll see how far I get. I think everybody here can see exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, it's fine.
So what I do is mention something, and you immediately interrupt, and you give me this.
No, I just
long,
want to address it. That's what I want to address it.
case proven. Yes.
Go for it.
And then you immediately interrupt, and you throw out this long series of philosophical babblegab, which is completely irrelevant to your premise. I don't care about this philosophy. Okay. Philosophy is a useful tool for generating good questions, but then science is what answers them. Science does not meddle in proofs. So when you keep talking about proofs, you're just going right over my head. I don't care. The proofs don't matter. What matters is, do we have empirical evidence for anything that you're talking about? And we do not. And in fact, we have empirical evidence that defies these interpretations that you're throwing at us.
Can I address that?
Why? Sure.
Thank you. First and foremost, don't you think it's an unhealthy way intellectually to always require empirical evidence to form conclusions about things? Because that would go back to logical positivism. It's very crude. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I would not agree.
Okay, why not?
Because you need the empirical evidence in order to confirm your interpretations of the world. That what we do in science is that you make preliminary hypotheses, which of course are conceptual.
Sure.
But then you rely on the fact that you have to generate empirical evidence about the world around you in order to test them. When you talk constantly about this conceptual stuff, this philosophical stuff, what you're doing is charging off without anything to ground your conclusions.
Okay, because I think there's a hidden assumption there that the only way you should ground conclusions are empirically. And I agree there's a value for empiricism.
No, that's not true.
But I would argue that there's some logical truths, for instance, that are necessary before you even have empiricism. Do you see? This is why when there was the big rationalist debate, the rationalists were the empiricists, mathematics was the battleground, wasn't it? And this is why you have some empiricists are rationalists for mathematics, but when it comes to the world, the empiricists. That's how they reconciled it. There was a philosophical contradiction there. So it's useful having this discussion, but I think there is that, crude view of empiricism is the only way form to form conclusions about our life.
No. This isn't about absolutes. This is not about. I'm saying that there's only one true way to interpret the world.
Sure.
What this is saying that the one reliable method we have requires confirmation from empiricism.
Okay.
You have not demonstrated another reliable method, because there are lots of people who believe in different religious views. They're all sitting there making exactly the same kinds of arguments you do. The Christians make the very same arguments you do.
Yes, they do, of course.
Yes.
Some Christians, not all.
Most
Some
of
of us
them.
just have faith or just
Whatever.
blindly believe.
But the point is that you are both using the same methods and you are arriving at completely different conclusions.
Yeah, I agree. Can I tell
So-
you why I agree with you?
Okay, go ahead.
The reason I agree with you is because, see, we've got one aspect of a philosophical justification for the existence of a creator cause, whatever you call it. Now, from that, then you have the concept of revelation, the concept of a text that is claimed to be from the divine. Now, we would humbly argue that, the Quran, which is the book of the Muslims, we would say is a very intrusive text. It's an imposing text, right? But this imposition, we would argue, is positive because, frankly, I think it just makes you think. For example, the Quran says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, do not use your brains. يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, for those who reflect, deep reflection. The Arabic word here means to really reflect about the implications of something. But the Quran goes further than this, which is quite weird from a religious book, from a secular perspective. It actually says, if you don't believe it's from the divine or from the supernatural, then challenge it. So what we would argue humbly is that there are no naturalistic explanations for certain statements in the Quran. For instance, some statements in the Quran that they mention geology and concept of isostasy, for instance. Concepts of that the mountains have root-like structures, which we just found out recently. If you go to the book Earth by Dr. Frank Press, it concludes that. So how could a desert Arab who knew nothing about science, was so primitive that, for instance, they used to believe mountains to keep the sky out, would come to such conclusions? We would humbly argue philosophically, we exhaust naturalistic explanations, so it's a signpost to the